Settle down, please. We're talking about the fact that mole ratio is the same as the volume ratio. So if you buy that 1 mole is reacting with 5 moles, producing 3 moles of carbon dioxide and 4 moles of water, you should also agree that 1 liter will react with 5 liters, forming 3 liters of carbon dioxide and 4 liters of water. So mole ratio is the same as the volume ratio. Now what we have, or how we use these principles is, you have a tube which is going to be called a uriometer tube, and you're going to fill this uriometer tube is going to be filled with a given amount of hydrocarbon, in gaseous form, and excess of oxygen. This uriometer tube is filled with some amount of hydrocarbon in gaseous form and excess of oxygen. Now why excess of oxygen? Excess of oxygen because see, that's again one way of looking at it, that lesser oxygen will mean incomplete oxidation. I don't know if you are aware of this term or not. In the course of a reaction, if one of the reactants falls short, if any of the reactant falls short, then that reactant is called the limiting reagent. You don't want hydrocarbon, you don't want oxygen to be the limiting reagent. I repeat, in a process, if one of the reactants get over, the one which falls short is called the limiting reagent. Because it limits the reaction. It limits the reaction. You want complete oxidation of hydrocarbon. You want all of the hydrocarbon to be burnt. Please be attentive. You want all of hydrocarbon to be burnt. So you don't want oxygen to fall short. You don't want oxygen to be the limiting reagent. Fair enough? So you work with excess oxygen so that all hydrocarbon is burnt. Maybe you will be left with some oxygen, but all of hydrocarbon would have burnt completely. So you start with some volume of hydrocarbon and excess oxygen, and the tube is calibrated. So the volume of the mixture could be read at any point of time.
So wouldn't it get very hot?
Yes.
Wouldn't it get very hot?
Don't worry about that, my friend. You'll have a material which will resist that temperature. Fine. Moving on. I'm going to do this at a temperature generally which is the flash point of a hydrocarbon at which it's going to get burned, and then I'm going to cool it down. General temperatures will be in the range of 20-30 degrees Celsius in laboratories across the world. So the normal temperature will be well below 100 degrees Celsius. I hope all of you are following me. The general temperature will be well below 100 degrees Celsius, and if the temperature is well below 100 degrees Celsius, you'll know water will be in gaseous form, in liquid form. The rest are in gaseous form. And again, let's agree, every time you have a mixture of gaseous and liquid compounds, every time we have a mixture of gaseous and liquid compound, the volume occupied by the liquid will be neglected. Every time we have a mixture of gaseous and liquid compound, the volume occupied by the liquid will be neglected. Fair enough? I'll try to explain it.
So why is it neglected?
I'll try to explain it. What's the molecular weight of water? Yes, I have a question for you. What's the molecular weight of water? 18 grams in liquid form is 18 ml. Expecting density to be 1 gram per ml? Say yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Don't worry, you'll have to say yes most of the times. Density being 1 gram per ml, 1 mole of water, 18 grams is going to be 18 ml. Fair enough? Water in gaseous form, 1 mole of water, 18 grams of water, 1 mole of water at NDP. What's the volume? 20.4 liters. We're talking of molar volume. Going to find these two very different from each other. Same amount of water in liquid form is 18 ml. In gaseous form, it's 22400 ml. From liquid to gaseous form, there's going to be a drastic change in volume, increase in volume. So every time you have a mixture containing gases, the volume of liquids will be neglected. Fair enough? Now if we allow the system to cool down, if you want water to be in the liquid form, that means 1 liter with 2 liter is forming 1 liter only. Say yes or no?
Yes,
1 liter with 5 liter is forming 3 liters only. 1 liter with 6.5 liters is forming. So 3 liters became 1 liter. 6 liters became 3 liters. 7.5 liters became. I'm not adding the volume of water because I know it's going to be in the liquid form. So the volume occupied by water is neglected. Now don't you find every time you have a decrease in volume? Every time you have a decrease in volume, and that's primarily because of the stoichiometry of the process. That's because of the stoichiometry of the process. I mean, every time you have CXHY reacting with X plus Y by 4 moles of oxygen, giving you X CO2 and Y by 2 moles of water, and because this Y by 2 liters is not going to be considered, every time if you start with 1 liter, if you start with 1 liter, the total volume of the reactants will be 1 plus X plus Y by 4, and the total volume of the product will be X only. I'm not counting this because this has turned to liquid. So in that case, every time there will be a decrease in volume, every time there will be a decrease in volume. Now I have an arrangement where suppose I have a liquid out here and I have balanced the water levels by any of the means. I'm doing this, this is atmospheric pressure, I'm keeping the pressure constant. I'm keeping pressure constant. I'm keeping temperature constant. So if I'm not letting pressure or temperature change. If I'm not letting pressure or temperature change, a decrease in volume will be reflected as a decrease in volume here also. So if the gases they decrease in volume, they contract in volume, water level will move up. It will move up. And obviously if there is an increase in volume of the gaseous compounds, it's going to move down. So you all buy this. And because the entire tube, the unidimensional tube is calibrated, initial volume, final volume, increase in volume, decrease in volume, all of this can be measured. Now, this is the first observation. You work with excess of hydrocarbon, you work with hydrocarbon and excess of oxygen, you let all the hydrocarbon burn, you cool it down so that water has become liquid, you expect a decrease in volume. Fine. And that decrease in volume will be red. By change in the water level, you will be able to read that change in volume. Fair enough? Now this is called primary contraction. So take down, initially you have a primary contraction which is due to the stoichiometry of the reaction. Fair enough? Which is because of the stoichiometry of the reaction. Primary contraction is the contraction in volume when you burn the hydrocarbon and then you allow the system to cool down. Get rid of this habit. You don't need to write definitions for everything, my friend. No one will want you to define primary contraction. Don't write definitions. You'll want to understand it. Primary contraction is, the contraction in volume once you have let all the hydrocarbon burn and then you allowed the system to cool down so that water became liquid. And don't you think a contraction or a change in volume will be the difference of initial and final volume. Will be the difference of initial and final volume. So what you started with? You started with volume of hydrocarbon plus volume of oxygen excess. This is what you started with. This was the initial volume of the hydrocarbon and the excess oxygen. I repeat, a change in volume will be what you started with minus what you are left with. A change will always be initial minus final because it's contraction. So this is what you started with, and what are you left with? Volume of carbon dioxide formed, and but that's neglected, and oxygen left. Hey, you had excess oxygen, so oxygen will be left. Say yes or no? Yes, so you all buy this. Primary contraction is volume of hydrocarbon taken plus oxygen taken minus carbon dioxide formed minus oxygen left in excess, left after the process. Now again, let me do this, and you'll want to agree to this. Volume of oxygen taken. Now this is volume of oxygen taken. You know, by excess I mean this is the volume of oxygen taken initially. Volume of oxygen taken minus volume of oxygen left. Now can I write it as volume of oxygen used? So primary contraction is going to be volume of hydrocarbon plus volume of oxygen used. I repeat, oxygen taken minus oxygen left is oxygen used in the process minus volume of carbon dioxide. So you want to know this result for the time being, that in uriometry the primary contraction is the volume of hydrocarbon plus volume of oxygen used. Now when I write volume of oxygen used, I mean x plus y by 4 only. Fair enough? When I write oxygen used, I can relate it with the balanced equation. Minus volume of oxygen, carbon dioxide formed. What we do after this is, tell me what absorbs carbon dioxide. KOH, NaOH, KOH, calcium hydroxide. Alkaline hydroxides can absorb carbon dioxide. They absorb carbon dioxide. So after noting down the primary contraction, you add a little amount of NaOH or KOH. You add a little amount of NaOH or KOH. It absorbs carbon dioxide. So if it absorbs carbon dioxide, the volume will further contract. Say yes or no? Yes, volume will further contract, and I am going to call this secondary contraction. I am going to call this secondary contraction, which you know is due to NaOH or KOH added. The secondary contraction is due to NaOH or KOH added, which absorbed carbon dioxide, and this contraction in volume has to be the volume of carbon dioxide which was formed. Say yes or no? Yes, so maybe you'll want to relate to these two results to begin with. Primary contraction is volume of hydrocarbon plus oxygen used minus carbon dioxide formed, and secondary contraction is volume of carbon dioxide formed. Fair enough? In the balanced equation, or to deduce the formula of the hydrocarbon, you have two variables x and y. For solving two variables, you'll want two equations. One will come from primary contraction, another will come from secondary contraction. Using these two equations, you'll evaluate these two variables. Once you know x and y, you know the formula of the hydrocarbon. Simple as that. So it was the theory part of uriometry. This was the small theory part of the uriometry. I told you how you deduce primary contraction and secondary contraction. I made you believe that with two equations you'll be able to derive the two variables. You'll want to put the value of x and y, you'll know the exact formula of the hydrocarbon. But believe me, until and unless we get some practice of problems on this topic, until and unless we have hands-on some questions of this topic, the understanding as well as the confidence in the topic will always be lagging. So I give you a little time just in case you want to ask anything, you want to get completely used to these two results. Small break, 2-5 minutes. Let me know if I need to repeat anything. See, what I do is, once I have noted primary contraction, I add a small amount of NaOH or KOH, which could be added in solid or liquid form. That's going to absorb carbon dioxide. You know, the equation happens to be NaOH or KOH with carbon dioxide forming carbonate. It's just about time. You know, all sodium salts are soluble. All sodium salts are going to be soluble. They are going to dissolve in water, and they're not going to be, certainly even in the solid form or the liquid form, the volume would not have been considered. So right away this gaseous carbon dioxide is absorbed. You add NaOH or KOH, carbon dioxide gets absorbed. You have a decrease in volume. That shrink in volume has to be the volume of carbon dioxide which was formed in the process. It's going to help in deducing you the value of X0 right away. With two equations, you'll be able to solve for X and Y, and we'll be able to reduce the formula of the hydrocarbon. So use this small little time which I'm giving you, just in case you want to me to repeat something else. We'll start with problem solving. I'll give you a set of problems, very basic problems, and that's how our understanding is going to be better.